Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about a civilization often painted with broad strokes of gold and engineering marvels, the Inca Empire. You might picture grand cities high in the Andes, intricate stonework, and a harmonious people. But the reality, my friends, was far more demanding. Forget your comfortable bed and your fully stocked fridge. Forget personal freedom and easy access to a hot shower. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers to show you a world where survival was a daily grind and the Empire's iron fist touched every single aspect of your existence. Before we dive into this relentless past, do me a solid, like this video, subscribe for more historical journeys, and drop a comment below telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. Alright, find that cozy spot, maybe grab a warm blanket because you're about to appreciate it more than ever. Now dim the lights and prepare for a journey you might not survive. You take a deep, gulping breath, but it feels like you're sucking on nothing but ghosts. The air is thin, sharp, and cold, clawing at your throat with every inhale. This isn't the gentle, oxygen-rich air you're used to, circulating easily through climate-controlled rooms. No, this is the air of the high Andes, a brutal, unforgiving mistress that makes every movement an effort, every thought a struggle against a dull throb behind your eyes. Your lungs, pampered by millennia of low-altitude living, burn and ache, screaming for a richness they won't find here. This is the first thing that hits you, the immediate, visceral shock to your system, a silent, pervasive reminder that you are utterly, hopelessly unprepared for life in the Inca Empire. Imagine waking not to the gentle hum of your refrigerator or the distant drone of traffic, but to the biting chill of a mountain dawn. The sun, when it finally crests the jagged peaks, doesn't offer warmth so much as a blinding, merciless glare, reflecting off the snow-capped summits that seem to scrape the very heavens. Your shelter is a small, windowless hut, perhaps made of rough-hewn stone and thatched with ichu grass, its interior perpetually damp and smoky from the small, smouldering fire that serves as your only source of heat and cooking. There's no soft mattress beneath you, no plush pillows to cradle your head. You've spent the night huddled on a coarse woven mat, the cold seeping up from the packed earth floor, your body stiff and protesting every time you shift. Your morning routine is less about personal hygiene and more about immediate survival. There's no running water, no clean latrine, no quick cup of coffee. Instead, you stumble out into the pre-dawn gloom, your breath pluming in front of you, and relieve yourself in a designated but still very rustic area. The air is sharp with the smell of damp earth, wood smoke, and a faint, acrid tang that speaks of human and animal waste. Your first task of the day, before the sun has even fully illuminated the valley, is often to fetch water. This isn't a quick trip to the tap. It's a laborious trek to a spring or a mountain stream, often a considerable distance away, carrying heavy clay jars that dig into your shoulders and back. The water is ice cold, fresh from the snowmelt, and you might wash your face with a quick bracing splash. But anything more is a luxury rarely indulged. Breakfast, when it comes, is a meager affair. Forget eggs, bacon, or a bowl of cereal. You're likely chewing on a handful of dried potatoes, chuño, painstakingly freeze-dried and rehydrated, or perhaps a small portion of quinoa stew. The taste is bland, earthy, and utterly utilitarian. It's fuel, nothing more, designed to give you just enough energy to face the grueling physical labor that defines your day. There's no flavor, no joy, just sustenance. And you eat it quickly, your hands still numb from the cold, your mind already racing ahead to the tasks that await you, because the work, you understand, is ceaseless. From the moment you can walk, you are part of the agricultural engine of the Inca Empire. Your childhood, if you could call it that in modern terms, was not filled with playdates and educational toys. It was a rigorous apprenticeship in the fields, learning the ancient ways of planting, tending, and harvesting in this brutal landscape. You've learned to wield a foot plow, the chaquitakala, with a rhythm that has been passed down through generations, breaking the unforgiving earth with your own muscle and sweat. Imagine the sheer, unremitting effort of turning over soil at high altitude, day after day, year after year, under the relentless sun or the sudden, chilling downpours. Your back aches, your muscles scream. Your hands are calloused and cracked, always. The terraces, those magnificent agricultural wonders that cling to the mountainsides like giant green staircases, are a testament not just to Inca engineering, but to the sheer, backbreaking labor of millions of individuals like you. You helped build them. You helped maintain them. You helped farm them. Every stone meticulously placed, every irrigation channel painstakingly carved, every crop planted and harvested by hand. There are no tractors, no mechanized irrigation systems, no chemical fertilizers to boost yields. It's all human power, animal power, and an intimate, often desperate understanding of the land and its fickle moods. And the weather. Oh, the weather is another cruel master. One moment the sun is beating down, searing your skin through your simple woolen tunic, the altitude amplifying its intensity. The next, a furious hailstorm can descend from the peaks, pelting you with icy missiles, threatening to destroy an entire season's harvest in minutes. Then comes the freezing night, where temperatures plunge and you huddle together for warmth, praying for the dawn. You live at the mercy of the elements, a constant, tangible threat that reminds you of your utter insignificance in the face of nature's power. There is no weather forecast, no warning, only the shifting clouds and the age-old wisdom passed down through your ancestors, which often proves insufficient against nature's caprices. Your clothing, too, is a constant reminder of your station and the lack of comfort. You wear simple, hand-woven tunics and cloaks, often made from llama or alpaca wool. It's coarse, it's scratchy, and while it offers some protection from the cold, it's far from the soft, lightweight, climate-controlled fabrics you take for granted. Imagine spending your entire life in clothes that feel like a perpetual itch, never truly clean, perpetually smelling of wood smoke, sweat, and the earth. There are no zippers, no buttons, no elastic waistbands. Everything is simple, functional, and enduring because it has to be. You have no surplus. Every thread is precious, every garment a testament to laborious spinning and weaving. The constant exertion, the altitude, the meager diet, the exposure to the elements, it all takes a toll. Your body, accustomed to the soft life of modern convenience, would revolt within days. Your head would pound, your stomach would churn from the unaccustomed food, your muscles would cramp and ache in ways you never thought possible. You'd be perpetually exhausted, not just physically, but mentally, from the sheer, unremitting effort required simply to be. There's no downtime, no weekends, no vacations. Every single day, from sunup to sundown, you are working, contributing, surviving. The Inca Empire demands your labor, your sweat, your life, and it leaves you with little else but the stark reality of your existence. You wouldn't last a day. You wouldn't even make it through the first morning without wishing desperately for a way back to your world of easy breaths and endless comforts. This isn't a life. It's an endurance test, and you are failing already. You're not an individual in the sense you understand it. In your world, you celebrate personal achievement, individual expression, the unique trajectory of your own life. Here, in the heart of the Inca Empire, such concepts are as alien as the notion of flying to the moon. You are first and foremost a member of an isla. Imagine being born into a family, a clan, a community so tightly interwoven that your identity is completely subsumed by it. Your ailu is everything. Your extended family, your social safety net, your economic unit, and the primary conduit through which the state interacts with you. There's no escaping it, no opting out, no forging your own path. Your destiny from the moment you draw your first breath is inextricably linked to the Allah, and through it to the vast, all-encompassing machinery of the empire. This is not the benevolent commune you might romanticize. The Ilu is a demanding master, an unbreakable chain that binds you. Every person, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, has a prescribed role, a set of duties that contribute to the collective good. Your labor, your resources, your very existence are not truly your own. They belong to the Ilu, which in turn owes its allegiance and its productivity to the Sapa Inca, the divine emperor. There's no such thing as private property in the way you conceive it. Land is held communally by the Ilu, allocated to families based on need and capacity, but never truly owned. Even the crops you grow, the goods you produce, are subject to the needs of the community and the levies of the state. Imagine the crushing weight of this collective responsibility. There's no room for personal ambition that doesn't serve the Ilu or the empire. If you dream of becoming a great artist, a brilliant scholar, or an intrepid explorer, those dreams are quickly extinguished, deemed irrelevant or even dangerous. Your role is defined by your birth, your gender, and the needs of the Ilu. If you are born into a farming family, you will be a farmer. If your father is a stone mason, you will learn the trade. There is very little social mobility, and any advancement is typically granted by the state for exceptional service, not pursued as an individual endeavor. Your life is laid out before you, a carefully prescribed path from cradle to grave, with very few deviations allowed. Consider your daily interactions. Every conversation, every gathering, every decision is steeped in this communal ethos. You live in close quarters, perhaps in a cluster of huts, shared by your extended family. Privacy, as you know it, is a foreign concept. Your neighbors are your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your entire world. Their successes are your successes, their failures yours. This creates a powerful bond, a sense of belonging so profound it might feel suffocating to your modern sensibilities. You are never truly alone, never truly isolated, but you are also never truly free. The greatest imposition, and the one that truly defines the lack of individual freedom, is the mita. Forget income tax, property tax, or sales tax. The Inca Empire didn't demand coin, for there was no money. Instead, it demanded labor. The mita was a system of rotational public service, essentially a labor tax that every able-bodied commoner owed to the state. Imagine being conscripted for a set period to work on vast public projects. You might be ordered to construct roads that crisscross the unforgiving Andes, building those marvels of engineering that still stand today, lifting colossal stones into place with nothing but ropes, ramps, and raw human power. You could be sent to quarry stones hundreds of miles from your home to build temples, fortresses, or storehouses. You might be assigned to mine for gold or silver in treacherous mountain shafts, the air thick with dust, the constant threat of collapse hanging over your head. Or perhaps you're drafted into the military, leaving your fields and family behind to defend the empire's borders or expand its reach. This wasn't a choice. It was an obligation, enforced with an iron will. When the call came from the curaka, your local leader, you answered. You packed your meager belongings, said goodbye to your family, and set off, sometimes for months or even years, to serve the Sapa Inca. There was no appealing the decision, no seeking an exemption, no claiming personal hardship. The empire's needs superseded all others. And while the Ailu might provide for your family in your absence, the burden was still immense. The journey itself could be perilous, traversing treacherous mountain passes, braving unpredictable weather, facing the constant threat of exhaustion and disease. You would march alongside hundreds, perhaps thousands, of others from different isles, all bound by the same inescapable duty. Consider the psychological toll. You are a cog in an immense machine, your life's purpose dictated by forces far beyond your control. Your skills are honed not for personal enrichment, but for the benefit of the state. Your very identity is defined by your contribution to the collective. This rigid system, while incredibly efficient in managing a vast and diverse empire without money, utterly obliterates the notion of self-determination. There's no entrepreneurship, no startup culture, no individual innovation for its own sake. Any new technique or idea would quickly be adopted and implemented across the entire system, attributed not to you, but to the collective wisdom and the beneficence of the Sapa Inca. Even your personal relationships are structured by the Ailu and the empire. Marriages were often arranged or at least heavily influenced by family and communal needs. You couldn't simply fall in love and elope. Your union was a matter of furthering the Ailu's strength, securing alliances, or fulfilling demographic quotas set by the state. You might be assigned a partner based on their age, their skills, or their family's standing. While affection might grow, the initial spark of individual choice, the modern romantic ideal, is entirely absent. Imagine the frustration, the quiet despair of being born into a life where your every action, every decision, every aspiration is preordained. The notion of me time or finding yourself would be utterly incomprehensible. You are part of something vast and ancient, a living, breathing component of the Tawantinsuyu, the Inca world. Your individual desires, your personal comforts, your fleeting moments of joy or sorrow are secondary, if they register at all, against the relentless demands of the collective. You wouldn't last a day. You would chafe against the invisible chains, scream against the crushing weight of expectation, and yearn for a world where your own thoughts and dreams mattered more than the next harvest or the construction of another segment of imperial road. Your very spirit, accustomed to personal freedom, would be utterly extinguished by the Ailu's unwavering grip. If you thought the Ailu was omnipresent, you haven't yet reckoned with the Sapa Inca himself, or rather, the vast, intricate, and utterly unforgiving administrative machinery that operated in his name. This wasn't a king ruling from a distant palace, occasionally dabbling in the affairs of his subjects. Oh no. The Inca Empire was, in essence, a meticulously organized totalitarian state, one that reached into every corner of your life with an efficiency that would make many modern dictatorships blush. You lived under the constant, invisible gaze of the Sapa Inca's eyes and ears, and there was absolutely nowhere to hide. Imagine a society with no written language in the way you understand it, no alphabet, no books, no documents in the traditional sense. Yet this empire managed to administer millions of people across a territory stretching thousands of miles. How? Through an ingenious, complex system of hierarchical control and meticulous record-keeping using quipus. These weren't just decorative knotted strings. They were sophisticated mnemonic devices, woven from cotton or alpaca fibers with main chords and subsidiary chords, each knot and color carrying specific numerical or calendrical data. Every aspect of your life was recorded on these quipus B. The number of people in your isla, the amount of land cultivated, the yield of your crops, the number of llamas you owned, the allocation of your meter labor, even perhaps birth rates and death rates, all meticulously tabulated and transmitted up the chain of command. Think about that for a moment. Someone, somewhere, had a record of your existence, your productivity, your entire contribution to the state, stored on a series of knotted ropes. There was no fuzzy math, no room for error, and certainly no opportunity for you to underreport your harvest or shirk your duties. The Kapuka Mayoks, the official record keepers, were highly trained and held immense power, silently tracking the pulse of the empire. This extensive record-keeping was directly linked to the rigid social hierarchy that governed your every interaction. At the very top, divine and unquestionable, was the Sapa Inca, the son of the sun god Inti. Below him, an aristocracy of Inca by blood, then Inca by privilege, followed by a tiered bureaucracy of regional governors, apus, provincial governors, tukrikuk, and local lords, kurakase. You, a commoner, were at the very bottom, but crucially, your kuraka was your direct link to the imperial system. He was responsible for organizing your meter labor, collecting your tribute in goods, resolving local disputes, and ensuring your loyalty to the Sapa Inca. He was both your advocate and your immediate overseer, and he had eyes everywhere. The empire enforced its will, not just through force, but through a pervasive system of surveillance and accountability. Imagine living in a small village high in the mountains. Everyone knows everyone else. Gossip travels fast. But beyond that, there were officials specifically tasked with overseeing your compliance. These tupus, or inspectors, would periodically visit your ilu, examining your fields, checking your storehouses, assessing your production, and ensuring that the meter duties were being fulfilled. They weren't just looking for efficiency, they were looking for dissent, for sloth, for any sign of defiance. The penalties for disobedience were swift and often brutal. Forget a fair trial or the presumption of innocence. If you were caught hoarding goods, shirking your meter, or, worst of all, speaking ill of the Sapa Inca, or plotting against the empire, the consequences were dire. Common punishments included public floggings, mutilation such as having your nose or ears cut off, or even death. And these weren't just for serious crimes. Theft, even of a small amount, could result in harsh penalties because it was seen as a crime against the collective and thus against the state. Imagine the constant low hum of fear that permeated daily life. Every action, every word had to be carefully weighed against the potential consequences. There was no privacy of thought if your thoughts could lead to observable actions of non-compliance. The empire also maintained its control through a remarkable system of population redistribution. If a conquered territory proved rebellious, or if a certain area needed a boost in agricultural production, entire communities could be uprooted and moved to a different region, sometimes hundreds of miles away. These mitmakuna, or forced resettlers, were strategically placed to integrate new territories, spread Inca culture and language, Quechua, or provide labor where it was most needed. Imagine being told one day that you and your entire family are to leave your ancestral lands, everything you've ever known, and relocate to a completely new and unfamiliar environment. You would have no say in the matter, no right to refuse. It was an imperial decree and you obeyed. This policy was incredibly effective at preventing rebellions and solidifying imperial control, but for the individual, it meant an utter lack of agency over your own life, your own home, your own future. Even religion was an instrument of state control. While local deities and traditions were often tolerated, the cult of Inti, the sun god, and the worship of the Sapa Inca as his divine representative was actively promoted and enforced throughout the empire. The Sapa Inca was not just a political ruler. He was a living god, and to question him was to question the divine order of the universe. This religious authority reinforced his absolute power, ensuring loyalty not just through fear, but through spiritual reverence. Temples to Inti sprang up across the empire, and state-sponsored rituals and ceremonies were a constant reminder of the Sapa Inca's divine legitimacy. So, when you consider your modern life with its constitutional rights, its freedom of speech, its ability to move freely, to choose your profession, to live where you please, to privacy in your home and your thoughts, understand that none of this existed for you in the Inca Empire. You were a subject, a resource, a part of a meticulously managed system designed to maintain order, extract labor, and glorify the Sapa Inca. Your every breath, your every action was observed, recorded, and judged. The concept of individual liberty was not just absent, it was antithetical to the very fabric of Inca society. You wouldn't last a day. The sheer psychological pressure of constant surveillance, the complete lack of personal autonomy, and the terrifying consequences of non-compliance would crush your spirit long before your body gave out. You would crave anonymity, a quiet corner to call your own, a freedom of thought that was simply not permitted to exist under the emperor's unblinking, all-seeing eye. Close your eyes for a moment and picture your refrigerator. Think of the crisp greens, the colorful fruits, the variety of meats, the dairy, the endless array of processed snacks and drinks. Now wipe that image clean from your mind. Because in the Inca Empire, your diet was as Spartan, as unforgiving, and as utterly devoid of personal choice as every other aspect of your life. It was a diet dictated by necessity, by the harsh realities of the Andean landscape, and by the strict allocation system of the state. You wouldn't just be hungry, you'd be perpetually unsatisfied, craving flavors and textures that simply didn't exist. Your staple, the absolute bedrock of your diet, was the potato. Not the perfectly peeled, uniformly sized, genetically engineered potato you find in supermarkets, but the gnarled, often small, intensely flavored varieties native to the Andes. There were thousands of types, each adapted to specific microclimates, but all of them required immense labor to cultivate, and crucially, to preserve them for the long, cold winters and the ever-present risk of crop failure. You would painstakingly produce chuño. Imagine the process of making chuño, a brutal, multi-day ordeal that begins with spreading freshly harvested potatoes on the ground on a freezing night. The sub-zero temperatures freeze the potatoes solid. Then, as the sun rises, you trample them with your bare feet, squeezing out the water. This freezing and trampling is repeated for several days, drying the potatoes under the intense sun during the day, letting them freeze at night. The result is a shriveled, dehydrated, blackish lump that looks utterly unappetizing. But chuño is incredibly lightweight, durable, and can be stored for years, making it an essential lifeline in a land prone to environmental extremes. It is sustenance pure and simple, but devoid of joy. Its texture, when rehydrated, is often mealy or rubbery, and its flavor, while earthy, is far from exciting. Beyond potatoes, your other primary crop would be quinoa, a highly nutritious grain, but again, a far cry from the fluffy, perfectly cooked quinoa salads you might enjoy. Here, it's often boiled into a thick gruel, sometimes mixed with a few herbs or chili peppers if you're lucky. It's bland, filling, and utterly repetitive. The texture is rougher, less refined, providing sustenance without culinary delight. Meat was a rarity for commoners. Forget beef, pork, or chicken as a regular part of your diet. Your primary animal protein came from guinea pigs, quiquias, which were often raised in your homes, or, more rarely, llama or alpaca meat, usually from animals too old to work or produce wool, or as part of a communal feast after a sacrifice. Llama meat is tough, gamey, and needs to be cooked slowly. Imagine the smell of a roasting guinea pig, a small, bony creature that barely provides a meal for one, its skin crackling over an open fire. It's a delicacy, a treat, not an everyday occurrence. Fish, if you live near the coast or a major lake, might provide another source of protein, but inland, it was almost unheard of. There was no sugar as you know it, no refined grains, no processed foods packed with salt and fat, and artificial flavors designed to tempt your palate. Your sweeteners, if any, might come from fruit, but fresh fruit, especially imported varieties, was a luxury for the elite. You might occasionally chew on coca leaves, especially when undertaking strenuous labor at high altitudes. This provides a mild stimulant, suppresses hunger, and helps alleviate the symptoms of altitude sickness, but it's a functional necessity. Not a recreational indulgence. Your drink of choice would almost exclusively be chicha, a fermented corn beer. It's mildly alcoholic, but more importantly, it's a source of calories and probiotics, especially when made correctly. Imagine the taste, earthy, slightly sour, yeasty, and thick with corn solids. It's often prepared communally, with women chewing the corn to break down starches with enzymes in their saliva, then spitting it into large vats to ferment. This might sound utterly disgusting to your modern sensibilities, but it was a crucial part of the diet and social fabric, consumed daily, not just for celebration. The preparation of food itself was a daily chore, devoid of modern convenience. There were no gas stoves, no electric ovens, no microwaves. All cooking was done over small open fires, often inside your smoke-filled hut, or on a simple stone hearth. Grinding grains and spices was done manually using a batan, a large, flat stone, and a mano, a smaller, handheld stone, a laborious, repetitive task that required significant upper body strength. You would spend hours each day simply preparing your meager meals, all from raw, unprocessed ingredients. There was no instant gratification, no pre-packaged anything, and let's not forget the sheer scarcity. Crop failures, droughts, or severe frosts could mean famine. While the Inca Empire had an impressive system of storehouses, kolkas, filled with surplus food, these were primarily for the army, for meter laborers, or for distribution during state-declared emergencies. You couldn't just wander in and demand provisions. Your ailu was responsible for its own self-sufficiency. And if your harvest failed, you faced hunger, illness, and potentially starvation until the next planting season. Imagine the psychological impact of such a diet. You eat to live, not for pleasure. There are no comfort foods, no delicious desserts, no rich sauces. Every meal is a reminder of the constant struggle for survival against the unyielding land. Your body would adapt slowly and painfully to this calorie-restricted, nutrient-specific diet, but your mind would likely rebel. You would crave the sweetness of sugar, the saltiness of processed snacks, the crispness of fresh vegetables, the richness of varied meats. Your palate, accustomed to a world of endless culinary possibilities, would be in constant shock. The modern concept of a balanced diet or eating healthy would be utterly meaningless. You ate what was available, what could be grown in the challenging climate, and what the state allowed. Your diet was a reflection of your place in the social order and the harsh environmental realities of the Andes. You wouldn't last a day. Your stomach would churn, your energy would flag, and your spirit would wither under the relentless monotony and scarcity of the Inca diet. You would yearn for a time when food was not just fuel, but a source of joy and abundance, a luxury that was utterly unimaginable in your current existence. You wake with a cough that rattles your entire frame, a raw, burning sensation in your chest. Your head throbs and your limbs ache with a deep, bone-weary fatigue that no amount of sleep could ever resolve. In your modern life, this might mean a trip to the doctor, a quick diagnosis, a course of antibiotics, and a few days of rest. Here, in the Inca Empire, such a scenario is a terrifying, potentially fatal roll of the dice. Your body, pampered and protected by millennia of medical advancement, would be utterly unprepared for the onslaught of disease, the rudimentary hygiene, and the often brutal realities of Inca medicine. You are, in essence, a walking target for every microbe and malady the Andes can throw at you. First, let's talk about hygiene. Forget hot showers, clean clothes every day, or even basic sanitation systems. Your small, smoky hut, shared perhaps with your extended family, provides little in the way of cleanliness. The packed earth floor is perpetually damp, often shared with domestic animals like guinea pigs. Waste disposal is rudimentary at best. Human and animal excrement might be collected for fertilizer, or simply left to decompose, creating breeding grounds for flies and other disease vectors. Water, as you recall, is a precious commodity, often fetched from distant springs or streams, and primarily reserved for drinking and cooking, not extensive bathing. You might wash your face and hands occasionally with cold water, but a full body wash is a rare, almost ritualistic event. Your clothes, coarse and scratchy, are rarely washed thoroughly and carry the accumulated dirt, sweat, and smoke of weeks, if not months, of wear. Imagine the pervasive, earthy, animalistic odor that would cling to you and everyone around you. This lack of comprehensive hygiene, coupled with close living quarters and a challenging environment, meant that disease was rampant. While the Inca Empire was spared many of the old world diseases that would later devastate its population, like smallpox brought by the Spanish, it had its own brutal roster of ailments. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, dysentery, parasitic infections from contaminated food and water, skin infections, and various forms of fevers were common. Child mortality rates were astronomically high. Most children would not survive to adulthood, and once an illness took hold, your body, weakened by constant labor and a utilitarian diet, would struggle mightily to fight it off. Your understanding of medicine, steeped in germ theory and sterile practices, would be utterly useless here. Inca medicine, while remarkably advanced for its time in some respects, operated on different principles. It blended empirical knowledge of herbs and plants with spiritual beliefs, believing that illness could be caused by imbalances in the body, punishment from the gods, or malevolent spirits. Healers, or curanderos, would combine herbal remedies with rituals, prayers, and divination. Imagine the curandero examining you. He might palpate your body, examine your excrement, or interpret your dreams. He might then prescribe a concoction of local herbs, perhaps quinine for fever, coca for pain relief, or various purgatives and emetics to cleanse your system. Some of these remedies, like willow bark for pain, containing salicylates, the precursor to aspirin, were genuinely effective. Others less so. You might be subjected to a sweat lodge, a ritual cleansing, or even a trepanation, a surgical procedure where a hole is drilled into the skull, often to relieve pressure from head injuries or perhaps to release evil spirits. Inca surgeons were incredibly skilled at this, with high survival rates, but imagine the raw, agonizing pain without modern anesthesia, the risk of infection with non-sterile instruments. There are no antibiotics to fight bacterial infections, no sophisticated diagnostics to pinpoint the exact cause of your illness. A simple cut, if it became infected, could lead to gangrene and death. A persistent fever could quickly escalate into delirium and organ failure. Childbirth, a relatively safe procedure in modern hospitals, was incredibly dangerous for both mother and child, often ending in tragedy. Dental hygiene was non-existent. Toothaches and gum infections were common and excruciating. Your teeth, if you lived long enough, would be worn down by coarse foods and grit. And then there's the constant threat of injury. Your daily life involves arduous physical labor, often on steep, treacherous terrain. A misstep on a mountain path, a falling rock during quarry work, a farming accident with a sharp tool. Any of these could result in a broken bone, a deep laceration, or a crushing injury. While Inca healers could set bones and stitch wounds, the healing process would be slow, painful, and prone to complications. There's no physical therapy, no painkillers beyond herbal concoctions, no sterile operating theaters. A severe injury could easily cripple you for life, rendering you unable to work and thus a burden on your island. A terrifying prospect in a society where productivity was paramount. Even minor ailments, easily shrugged off in your world, would be a constant nuisance. Persistent colds, fungal infections from damp living conditions, painful calluses and blisters from constant walking and labor. These are not trivialities. They are everyday realities that erode your comfort and contribute to a pervasive sense of physical discomfort and vulnerability. The mental burden of this constant physical fragility is immense. You live with the ever-present knowledge that a single cough, a clumsy step, or an unexpected fever could be the end of you. There's no safety net of advanced medical care, no assurance that you'll recover. You are utterly at the mercy of your body's resilience and the sometimes effective, sometimes ineffective remedies of your curandero. You wouldn't last a day. Your delicate modern immune system, unaccustomed to such a constant barrage of pathogens, would likely collapse. Your mind, accustomed to the immediate relief of modern medicine, would be overwhelmed by the pain, the fear, and the sheer helplessness. You would yearn for a simple pill, a doctor's reassurance, a clean bed, and the sterile environment of a hospital. But all you would find is a world where illness is a constant companion, and death is always just a breath away. A world where your body's burden is the heaviest weight you carry. You reach for your softest cotton t-shirt, your most comfortable jeans, or perhaps a plush fleece blanket. They're light, breathable, machine washable, and effortlessly comfortable. Now feel the phantom itch of coarse alpaca wool against your skin. Imagine the perpetual weight of layers of hand-woven cloth, and understand that your concept of clothing, like so much else, is utterly alien to the Inca Empire. Here, Textiles are far more than just garments. They are the very threads of life, indicators of status, currency, tribute, and a constant, visible chain of duty that binds you to the empire. Your own wardrobe would be remarkably limited. For a commoner like you, it would consist of a simple, knee-length tunic, unku, for men, or a longer, wrapped dress, aksu, for women, often belted at the waist. Over this, you'd wear a rectangular mantle or cloak, likla, for warmth, secured with a pin. All of it, without exception, would be hand-spun and hand-woven from the wool of llamas or alpacas, or, occasionally, cotton if you lived in the warmer coastal regions. There would be no variety beyond the slight differences your Ailu might produce, no choice in style, and certainly no rapidly changing fashion trends. Your clothes are functional, designed for protection against the elements and durability, not for individual expression. Imagine the process of creating these garments. It begins not with a trip to a store, but with the careful tending of camelids, llamas and alpacas. You would shear the animals, a skilled task to gather their precious fleece. Then comes the arduous process of spinning. Every single thread, from the thickest yarn for a blanket to the finest filament for a noble's tunic, is spun by hand using a drop spindle. Women especially were expected to be proficient spinners, constantly twisting and drawing out fibers as they went about their daily tasks, a spindle often dangling from their hand, a testament to their industriousness. This is not a hobby. It is an essential part of your contribution to the Ailu and the empire. Imagine the hours, the weeks, the months of repetitive motion required to produce enough yarn for even a single garment. Your fingers would be calloused, your muscles aching from the constant, precise work. Once spun, the yarn is dyed using natural pigments derived from plants, insects like cochineal for vibrant reds, and minerals. The colors are rich and earthy, but limited compared to the synthetic dyes of your world. Then comes the weaving. Every piece of fabric, from the simplest poncho to the most complex tapestry, is woven on a backstrap loom, a portable device that straps around your waist, using your own body tension to create the fabric. This is a highly skilled craft passed down through generations. You would sit for hours, days, weeks, meticulously interlocking threads, your body aching from the posture, your eyes strained from the close work, your mind focused on the intricate patterns that emerge. The quality of the fabric and the complexity of its design were immediate, unmistakable indicators of social status. A commoner's clothing would be made of awaska, a coarser weave from llama wool, simple in design and color. A noble or the Sapa Inca himself would wear kompi, a much finer, exquisitely woven fabric made from vicuña wool, often adorned with intricate geometric patterns, elaborate featherwork, or even precious metals. To even touch a kompi would be a rare privilege for you. Imagine living in a society where your worth, your rank, your very identity is literally woven into the fabric of your clothes, clear for all to see. There's no pretending to be someone you're not, no dressing up to impress. Your clothing broadcasts your station without a single word. But the importance of textiles extends far beyond personal apparel. Textiles were, in many ways, the currency of the Inca Empire. They were used as tribute, as gifts, as rewards, and as a form of wealth. You, as a commoner, would be expected to contribute a portion of your spun yarn or woven cloth as a form of labor tax, the mita. This contribution might go to clothe the army, to adorn the temples, or to provide for the royal family and its vast bureaucracy. Imagine the frustration of spending countless hours on a project, knowing that the fruits of your labor will be taken by the state, not for your own comfort or benefit, but for the empire's needs. Consider the sensory experience of wearing these clothes. The coarse wool, even when well made, is not soft like merino. It would constantly itch and scratch against your skin. It would smell of earth, wood smoke, and the animals it came from, smells that would never truly leave it, no matter how much you cleaned it. Imagine the weight of it, especially in colder weather when you might layer multiple pieces, restricting your movement, making every physical task just a little harder. There are no stretchy fabrics, no breathable synthetics, no moisture-wicking materials. You would be perpetually too hot or too cold, perpetually uncomfortable, always aware of the rough texture against your body. Even your sleepwear would be your daily wear, or perhaps a slightly older, more worn tunic. There are no pajamas, no specialized clothing for relaxation. Life demands function over comfort, always. Your clothing, like your diet and your labor, is a constant reminder of your role, your obligations, and the empire's absolute claim on your time and your skills. The simple act of getting dressed in the morning, for you, is a moment of decision, of personal expression. Here is a ritual of duty. You put on the clothes of your alus, the clothes of your station, the clothes of your empire, knowing that every thread is a bond. You understand that the warmth and protection they offer come at the cost of immense, unremitting labor. Your alus' labor, generations of labor. You wouldn't last a day. Your delicate skin, accustomed to the softest fabrics, would break out in rashes. Your mind, accustomed to choosing your attire to suit your mood or your activity, would rebel against the utter uniformity and lack of personal choice. You would chafe against the physical discomfort and the psychological weight of wearing your entire social contract on your sleeve. The threads of life, which for you represent freedom and comfort, would become, in the Inca Empire, an itchy, heavy, inescapable chain of duty. You would yearn for the simple luxury of a soft cotton shirt, a luxury that would be utterly unimaginable in this meticulously woven world. Segment 7, the Gods' Demands. Rituals, sacrifice, and omens. Imagine living in a world where the very mountains around you are alive, where the sun is a divine ancestor, the moon a revered mother, and every crop, every river, every rock holds a spirit or a deity that demands respect, appeasement, and often sacrifice. In your modern life, faith might be a personal choice, a private conviction. Here, in the Inca Empire, religion is an all-encompassing, pervasive force that dictates your every action, imbues every natural phenomenon with cosmic significance, and fills your days with both profound reverence and bone-chilling fear. You live under the constant pressure of the gods' demands, and their displeasure could mean the ruin of your alu, your harvest, or your very life. Your world is saturated with the divine. The wakas won't sacred objects, places, or even mummified ancestors are everywhere. A peculiarly shaped rock on a mountain pass might be a waka, a spring bubbling forth with life-giving water, a waka. A cave, a tree, a particularly significant peak, all imbued with spiritual power. You would treat these sites with profound respect, leaving small offerings of coca leaves, chicha, or even miniature textiles as you pass, whispering prayers for safe passage or a bountiful harvest. Every journey, every task, every aspect of your life is punctuated by these small, constant acknowledgments of the spiritual realm. The greatest of these deities, of course, is Inti, the sun god, divine ancestor of the Supper Inca himself. His journey across the sky each day is not merely a scientific phenomenon. It is a sacred procession, a daily reaffirmation of life and imperial power. You would greet the sunrise with reverence, understanding that your very existence depends on his warmth and light. The moon, Mama Killa, goddess of the moon and fertility, would be equally revered, particularly by women. And the powerful forces of nature, Mama Kocha, sea goddess, Pachamama, earth mother, Illapa, weather god, all held immense sway over your daily life, their favor crucial for your survival. This deep spiritual connection means that omens are everywhere, constantly being interpreted by priests and shamans, yatiri or pako. A flight of birds, the shape of clouds, the entrails of a sacrificed animal, a sudden illness, all could be signs, portents, messages from the divine that needed careful deciphering. Imagine living with this constant anxiety, trying to read the will of the gods in every rustle of leaves, every shadow, every unexpected event. You have no scientific explanations for drought or disease. Instead, you look to the heavens, to the spirits, to the possibility that you or your Ailu have somehow offended the powerful forces that govern your world. And when the omens are dire, or when the empire faces a crisis, a prolonged drought, a military setback, or a particularly harsh winter, the demands of the gods escalate. This is where the terrifying reality of Inca sacrifice enters your life. Forget the romanticized notions of noble death. For you, it is a chilling reminder of your vulnerability. While human sacrifice was not an everyday occurrence like it might have been in some other Mesoamerican cultures, it was a profound and deeply significant ritual, particularly the Capacocha ceremony. Imagine the fear, the awe, the profound sense of communal purpose as you witness a Capacocha. This was a ritual involving the sacrifice of perfectly healthy, beautiful children, chosen for their purity, typically between the ages of 6 and 15. These children, often from conquered or allied Islus, would be dressed in fine clothing, fed well, and then led on long pilgrimages to sacred mountain peaks. They were not simply slaughtered, they were considered messengers to the gods, offerings of the most precious kind. They might be given chicha and coca to lull them into a stupor, then either left to freeze to death at extreme altitudes or killed quickly by a blow to the head or strangulation. Their bodies, preserved by the cold, are still found today, mute testaments to this brutal devotion. As a commoner, you would likely not be the one chosen, but you would witness the preparations, the processions, the profound societal weight of such an event. You would understand that these children were being offered to appease the gods, to secure the empire's well-being, to prevent unimaginable catastrophe. And in that understanding, there is both deep spiritual reverence and a chilling reminder of the ultimate price that could be demanded by the divine and, by extension, by the Sapa Inca. Your daily rituals are simpler, but no less constant. You would pour a small amount of chicha onto the earth as an offering to Pachamama before planting. You would offer coca leaves to mountain spirits before embarking on a journey. You would participate in communal ceremonies and festivals that marked the agricultural calendar, honoring the sun, the moon, the rains, and the harvest. These were not optional. They were an integral part of your social and spiritual contract with the universe, carefully orchestrated by state priests and local shamans. There is no room for atheism or agnosticism in this world. To deny the gods, to scoff at their power, would be not only profoundly offensive but utterly incomprehensible. Your worldview is entirely shaped by their presence, their demands, and the constant need for their favor. Every drought, every flood, every successful harvest is a direct consequence of their will. Your very survival hinges on your piety and the correct observance of rituals. You wouldn't last a day. Your scientific, rational mind, accustomed to logical explanations for natural phenomena, would be in constant conflict with the spiritual worldview. The pervasive fear of divine retribution, the chilling spectacle of sacrifice, and the relentless pressure to perform rituals correctly would weigh heavily on your modern psyche. You would find the constant appeasement exhausting, the omens terrifying, and the ultimate demand, the life of an innocent child, utterly repulsive. The gods' demands, in their profound and brutal reality, would be too much for your modern spirit to bear. You would crave a world where the divine is a matter of personal faith, not a constant, terrifying force dictating every aspect of your fragile existence. Imagine the feeling of absolute, unassailable freedom of movement. You want to visit another country? You book a flight. You want to drive to another state? You fill up your tank. You want to simply disappear, reinvent yourself, or escape a bad situation. The modern world, for all its surveillance, still offers a surprising degree of anonymity and mobility. Now strip all of that away, because in the Inca Empire there was no escape. The vast, meticulously engineered road network, the legendary chasqui runners, and the omnipresent administrative reach of the Sapa Inca meant that every corner of the empire and every subject within it was under constant, inescapable control. The Inca road system, the Capac Ñan, was one of the most astonishing engineering feats of the ancient world. Spanning over 25,000 miles, it crisscrossed the most challenging terrain imaginable, soaring mountain passes, deep valleys, arid deserts, and dense jungles. These weren't just dirt tracks. They were often paved, with elaborate drainage systems, retaining walls, tunnels, and astonishing suspension bridges woven from ichu grass, swaying precariously over dizzying gorges. As a commoner, you would have been conscripted through the mita to build and maintain these roads, a back-breaking labor that shaped your landscape and, ironically, sealed your fate. These roads were not for you to simply travel on for pleasure. They were built for the army, for administrators, for the movement of tribute and goods, and, crucially, for the rapid relay of information. Imagine standing on a desolate mountain path, watching a caravan of llamas laden with goods pass by, overseen by imperial officials, or seeing a detachment of highly disciplined Inca warriors marching, their presence a stark reminder of the empire's power and its ability to project force anywhere, anytime. The most iconic symbol of this imperial reach were the chasqui. These were highly trained, athletic young men, stationed in pairs at small relay stations, tambos, every few miles along the entire length of the road system. Their job was to run messages, either verbal, meticulously memorized, or in the form of quipus, across the vast empire at incredible speeds. Imagine standing at your field, watching a chasqui blur past, his distinctive uniform and feathered headband a flash of color against the drab landscape, his powerful legs pounding the earth. The sound of his pututu, conch shell trumpet, announcing his arrival to the next relay station. These runners could cover hundreds of miles in a day, ensuring that the Sapa Inca received news, delivered orders, and maintained control over his vast domains with astonishing efficiency. Imagine that. A message could travel from Cusco to Quito, a distance of over 1,000 miles in just a few days. This meant that any unrest, any rebellion, any attempt to defy imperial authority would be known almost immediately in the capital, and a swift, brutal response could be dispatched just as quickly. There was no hiding. There was no remote village too isolated for the Sapa Inca's reach. The tambos themselves, spaced strategically along the roads, were not just relay points for chasqui. They were also administrative centers, barracks for soldiers, and storehouses for supplies. If you were on mitter duty, traveling for the state, these tambos would provide you with shelter and provisions. But they were also checkpoints, places where your identity, your purpose, and your loyalty could be scrutinized. You would encounter imperial officials, tupas, and military personnel, all representing the unblinking eye of the state. This system meant that your life was utterly circumscribed. You were tied to your Ailu, to your lands, to your role in the imperial machine. You couldn't just pack a bag and leave. To do so would be to abandon your Wailu and your duties, an act of defiance with severe consequences. You would be a rogue, a stateless person, easily identified and apprehended. The roads were monitored, the villages had curakas who knew everyone, and the chasqui carried information like lightning. Where would you go? Who would take you in? Every path led deeper into the empire, not out of it. Even if you managed to evade immediate capture, where would you find sustenance? The land was communally owned, and every able-bodied person was accounted for in the quipus. There was no unclaimed territory for you to settle, no opportunity to carve out a new existence for yourself. You would be an anomaly, a threat to the meticulously ordered system, and the full weight of imperial law enforcement would be brought to bear on you. The psychological impact of this inescapable control is profound. You would live with the understanding that every step you took, every word you spoke, was potentially observed and reported. The vastness of the empire, which to your modern mind might suggest opportunities for anonymity, instead meant that the Sapa Inca's power was simply magnified across an impossibly large canvas. His authority was absolute, his reach total, and his control unquestionable. You wouldn't last a day. Your independent spirit, your ingrained belief in personal freedom, and your expectation of privacy would be shattered by the oppressive reality of Inca imperial control. The thought of being constantly monitored with no recourse, no escape, and no hope of a different life would be utterly terrifying. You would yearn for a world where horizons are open, where paths can be chosen, and where the reach of authority has its limits. But in the Inca Empire, every road led back to the Sapa Inca, and there was simply no way out. The sheer impossibility of escape, the feeling of being a piece on a grand imperial chessboard, would crush your spirit long before your weary legs gave out. So you've endured the thin air, the endless labor, the suffocating grip of the Ailu, the Sapa Inca's unblinking eye, the Spartan diet, the threat of disease, the scratch of coarse wool, the demands of the gods, and the terrifying impossibility of escape. Your body aches, your mind is reeling, and your modern spirit of individualism is utterly broken. You wouldn't last a day in the Inca Empire, not really. Your modern comforts, your sense of personal liberty, your very expectations of life would be utterly annihilated by the stark realities of this ancient world. But now, as we gently pull back from that visceral, demanding reality, let's reflect on what this journey has truly shown us. The Inca Empire, for all its ruthlessness and totalitarian control, was also a testament to incredible human resilience, ingenious organization, and a profound connection to the land. Those roads, those terraces, those cities, clinging to mountain peaks, they weren't built by slaves in the traditional sense, but by millions of people fulfilling their unshakable duty to the state and their Ailu. Their lives were hard, relentlessly so, But they also forged a society that managed to feed millions, manage vast resources, and maintain order across an immense and incredibly diverse geographical area, all without money or a written language. Imagine the strength, the communal spirit, the sheer mental fortitude required to not just survive, but to thrive, to build, to sustain such a civilization. They found their meaning not in individual expression, but in collective purpose. They found their security not in personal wealth, but in mutual aid and state provision. Their connection to their land and their gods was not a quaint belief, but the very fabric of their existence, guiding every planting, every harvest, every breath. Now look around your own space. Feel the warmth of your room, the softness of your blanket. Taste the lingering flavor of a meal chosen for pleasure, not just for survival. Appreciate the clean air, the ease of movement, the privacy of your thoughts, the freedom to choose your own path, however mundane that choice might seem. Consider the simple luxury of complaining about a slow internet connection or a bad hair day, utterly impossible grievances in the world we just explored. This journey through the Inca Empire isn't just a historical anecdote. It's a profound mirror reflecting back the extraordinary privileges of your modern life. It's a reminder that the good old days were often, for the vast majority, anything but good. It's a testament to the fact that societies can be built on radically different foundations, achieving greatness through means that would horrify your contemporary sensibilities. You wouldn't last a day, and that's okay. It's a testament to progress, to the millennia of human striving that have brought us to a point where a life of individual choice, comfort, and relative freedom is even conceivable. So as you finally drift off to sleep tonight, let the echoes of the high Andes, the ghosts of hard-working Oilu members, and the silent strength of the Sapa Inca's empire remind you of the profound gifts you take for granted every single day. Rest easy, my friend. You've earned your modern comforts. Good night.